In this video, I'm going to be dropping a lot of wisdom by sharing you my life story. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Celine Clar. And if you're someone that's interested in business, investing, personal development, and spirituality, then stick around in this video because you will learn a lot. And for those of you who do know me, hi again. I'm really excited for you guys to see this more deeper layer of me because I've been sharing and kind of putting up a specific persona on Instagram, and I really want to take this time to create this whole YouTube video to explain you guys my whole life journey and the decisions I've made, my upbringing, who I am really as a person to become the person that I am today, who is 24 years old, somehow never grew up with parents that are into business. They've always just been like 9 to 5 workers. And somehow I ended up managing a very successful business that's making me around $30,000 a month to date. And I just want to share my journey with you and basically tell you exactly what happened in my life that got me to the point where I am today. So to start off with, I want you guys to kind of get to know me on a very foundational level, my childhood. So I'm Swiss Chinese. My dad is Swiss German and my mom is Chinese. I was born in Hong Kong, and I would say overall, I've been very privileged in my childhood. I had a very happy childhood. I was born smiling. I mean, that's something my mom would always tell me, that the moment I was literally just a few days old, I was always laughing. And I was just always a positive kid, always had a lot of energy, maybe a little bit too much energy. I was extremely hyperactive as a kid. And thanks to the lifestyle of my parents, I was able to see the world and travel the world since a young age. My dad, he's a general manager he works for the hotel industry. And so because of his job, he would get new assignments to open hotels every 2 years or so. So since I was born, every 2 years, I would move to different countries and continents. I was born in Hong Kong, then I moved in my first 2 years, I lived in Singapore. And then I moved to Saudi Arabia, crazy, when I was 4 years old, and then lived another 2 years in Egypt. And then at 6, we moved to China, where I stayed for 12 years of my life. So the majority of my life, I actually grew up in China. Although I would say my upbringing was very international. It's like a third world culture kid. I think for those of you who are watching who have, mixed race parents or just been traveling a lot since you're a kid, you guys kind of know me because every time I introduce myself to some people, they're like, why do you have an American accent, but you're Swiss and you're Chinese? And they always get super confused. And it's because since I was born, English is my first language. That's how my parents communicated. They met in China in 1997. And I was born 2 years later in Hong Kong. And they always spoke English to me as a first language, and then I quickly learned Chinese afterwards. So I kind of grew up bilingual. And throughout my early years, I would say, from I was born till I was 12 years old, and until I was 18, I always studied in international schools. So this is a big thing in Asia. The curriculum was, I was always studying in an American school, hence my American accent. And so, a little bit insights into my childhood. I was always a super hyperactive kid. And I believe since I was 6 years old, I found my passion for dancing. I was always super into dancing, performing, being on stage. And soon, quickly after, my mom saw there I had a lot of potential. And basically, as a tiger mom that she is, Asian tiger mom, she put me in a bunch of different talent shows since I was 6 years old up until I was around 15. So since I was 6, I was always comfortable being on stage. I would go to different talent shows, competitions, school competitions, even up to the point when I was 12, I was performing on live television in China, singing and dancing. So since I was a kid, I loved being in front of the camera. I loved performing. I loved just giving out my energy. And I guess this is why I've gotten to a point where I'm basically a content creator, because I love just being in people's eyes. It's just something that I always enjoyed doing. So that's a little bit of like kind of background about my childhood. That's why I am the way I am today. And I would say up until like 14, 15, from 6 to 15 years old, like music, dancing, and any form of art was my identity for the longest time. It just was a natural calling for me. And like for the past 10 years, I was learning piano every day. I was taking piano classes 1 to 2 hours a day. I was taking singing classes. I was taking ballet classes, hip hop classes. Like if you think about like the stereotypical Asian kid, that was me. I was jumping from class to class and really almost about to pursue a professional singing career up until I was 15. And a lot of my friends don't know this about me because it's just such an old identity of mine, but it really did shape who I am today. And I want to talk a little bit about that because it has to do with a lot of things that I suppressed because of the influences that I had around my life, more specifically my parents. So during this whole time, when I was really in my natural essence of loving to sing and dance, I got to a point when I was around 10 years old where I met a very famous Taiwanese singer, a songwriter who was retired, and I met him in an airplane. And I think, yeah, I was like 8 or 9 years old at that time. And essentially, long story short, this guy, his name is Zhang Hongliang. He was a very famous Taiwanese singer. He was chatting with my mom, and I was playing with his son because his son was around the same age as me. And he saw me, and we were basically, when they caught up with my parents, he's like, he knew that I liked to dance. So while we were in a family dining area, he was like, Celine, like, why don't you sing for us? Like, perform something small. So I did. And he told my mom that day, Celine has some incredible stage talent, stage presence. And if she starts now taking piano classes, singing classes, and so on, we can go get her pro. She can get to a point where we can make her really, really big. And their goal was like making me, I don't know, like the Rihanna or Beyonce of Asia. That was their whole plan. And so that was essentially my life from 10 to 15 years old. Every single day after school, I would be playing piano, I would go to dance classes, I would be singing classes, and so on. And this was just my life. I would be skipping classes sometimes to travel to other cities to perform in national TV talent shows. And I won a few awards here and there and everything. And I guess once puberty hit, obviously being a preteen, you become more self-cautious. You're scared of being judged by your classmates and so on. And at one point I started like doubting myself and thinking like I'm actually not really good at singing. And I slowly started to practice piano less and started singing less. And it got to a point where I was 15 when I was gonna get soon to like high school, and there was a lot of work with school. My mentor, Zhang, told my mom like, hey, look, I feel like Celine's not reaching her fullest potential and she needs to get to this point now to make a decision if she wants to drop out of school. And we do this like full time, like put you in intense dance singing school camp in Korea when you're 16 up until she goes pro. Or she completely gives it up and continues the safe path and just finishes high school and starts go to university. So it was really all or nothing. And there was so much conflicting voices because on one side, my mom was so supportive of it. My mom was always so supportive. And she's someone that's like, if you do something, you have to do it super well, but I will support you doing no matter what you do. Whereas my dad, he was really like the logical guy, and he was his whole life working in five-star hotels. All he knows is like the traditional path of what success is, you know, work for a good company and climb the corporate ladder. So there was a lot of conflicting opinions about what I should do with my career. And I was only 15 years old, so I didn't know what was best for me. And I ended up being convinced, unfortunately, to take the safe path because I wasn't so confident in myself, and my dad was telling me like, Celine, this is being a singer is a starving job. You're one in a million talented girls out there who can sing and dance, and like the chances of you being successful is very slim. So I gave up completely on that part of my life, and I decided to pursue business in after this. So it was a smooth transition, and I kind of just embraced every side of it, but it got to a point where I was just like, okay, that kind of makes sense to be rational. I'm just going to focus on school, go to a good university, and then hopefully my plan was to start a business. So at this point, I was like 17, 18 years old. I had 1 year left of high school, and I always had the idea that I wanted to start a business, to do something business related, either marketing or business, but I didn't know what. I was 17. My parents don't do it. My parents are not business people, so I had no clue what I was going to do, but I had to figure out what university I was going to go to. And so I ended up going to a hospitality oriented university. So for those of you who don't know what hospitality is, it's tourism. It's think about just like hotel management business. Like that's what I was studying. And I went to my dad's dream university. It's located in Switzerland, in Lausanne. And for those of you who don't know, it's called EHL. And this university, before I applied, I was like, I don't want to study hotel management. That doesn't appeal to me whatsoever. But my dad, because he was a hotel expert, he was like, Celine, you'd be surprised. Just go and check out, go to the campus tour, and you might be surprised and discover like what it has to offer. And so when I did like an open day, when I was like 18, summertime, I went to Switzerland with my mom, and we checked out this university, EHL. And I was shocked. I was mesmerized on the first day when I visited this school, because it was, first of all, it was so bougie. Like the moment you walk into this campus, every person was wearing a suit. Girls were super fashionable. They were wearing like matching suits, like a purple suit or a green suit, and they were all wearing high heels, and all the girls were super pretty, and all the guys were also like so hot. I was just thinking when I was like 17, 18 years old, I'm like, oh my God, there's a place that exists like this. There's a university where everyone's so nicely dressed. Everyone is coming from all over the world. You have like mixes like me, like half Asian, half European students. You have people from Europe, from the States, everywhere. So this is really like kind of a bubble. And I thought, oh my God, this place is perfect. Even though there was a focus on studying hospitality management, it was actually a business university with hospitality, with hotels as applied to hotel management. So I looked at the program and I saw, oh, look, like there's marketing classes in this, there's finance classes, there's economics. So actually, technically, this school could be for me. And I basically only applied to that university and I got in. So that's something about me, is that I never have plan Bs. When I like something, I just go for that one thing. I don't think about, oh, like, what if it doesn't work out? I just focus on. Since I was young, I always knew what I wanted. And I remember when I was 18, I had my classmates and my counselor and my teachers were like, Celine, you need to apply to at least 5 or 10 universities. Like, what if you don't get in? And I'm just like, then I'll worry about it later. I can't even imagine applying to a university that I'm not even that interested in. Like, I know for a fact that I'm going to be in this university, and I'm just going to put my focus on there. It was super risky, but yeah, I got into EHL and I moved when I was 18 to Switzerland. So I moved to Europe for the first time in my life by myself. And this starts my university chapter. So a lot has happened in university. On one side, I'm going to split this up into 3 parts because my time in university shaped my character of who I am today. So I want to share with you kind of like, I had like very big struggles in the period from 18 to 20. A lot of financial difficulties at home, and also my experience working in a hotel. So I'm going to start off with my experience working in a hotel for the very first time. So in my university, one of the mandatory things that I had to do in order to graduate was to have work experience working in a hotel for 6 months. And I was 18 at the time. So what they do is basically in my university is like the first 6 months is kind of like fun and play. We basically get split out of 200 of us in the grade. We get split into around 20 groups, and each group has around 20 people. So I was in a class of 20 people, and we would be in rotation. Every week we would change a different workshop that kind of mimicked the way the hotel industry was operating. So one week I would be learning how to make cocktails. One week I'd be learning how to make croissants and make bread and bakery. Another week I would be serving as a waitress in a Michelin star restaurant. And another week I would be learning housekeeping and like cleaning toilets and making people's beds. Like, yes, like guys, this type of school exists. It's a hospitality hotel school. And you actually do learn a lot of life skills in this 6 months, but it was mostly fun. It was very easy to pass for the first 6 months, and a lot of people just like, it was fun, like waking up at six in the morning after a night of partying, and we wouldn't even go to sleep. We would go straight from partying. Like in my first year of university, we would go to class at 6 a.m. making bread. Like we would make croissants and baguettes, and our teachers would be like Michelin star renowned famous cooks that would be teaching us. It was crazy, like the amount of things that you guys you guys would not imagine, like the type of things this school did. This university was really bougie. But yeah, after those 6 months of like different workshops, like learning all the different things of what a hotel operation works, we had to do 6 months internship in any hotel we wanted to work in, anywhere in the world. So at that time, I wanted to practice my French. My French was pretty good, but I wasn't in that stage where I felt super confident to just speak whatever I was thinking in French. So I chose an internship in Paris. And this is giving me an Emily in Paris moment because I was so excited going to Paris. I'm like, wow, it's the most romantic city. I just can't wait to like go there and experience the city. My French is gonna be so good after those 6 months. Those 6 months was literal hell. But it shaped my character. I was so emotionally abused in these 6 months of my time working in a hotel in Paris. And I want to like kind of go a little bit into this because a lot of you don't know my background and like what I had to go through in this internship that basically built my character. So I got assigned a position as a waitress for a Michelin star restaurant in one of the 5-star hotels in Paris. And for those of you who don't know French culture, you guys, maybe most of you guys know French culture. Like if you're not French and you come in working in a French culture company, you're not gonna be accepted by the group if you're not French. And me coming in with my half-broken French, having an American accent, being 18, super young, innocent, naive, I walked in like just me, like super happy and everything. And I instantly, from day one, got put in my place because I was a nobody there. And of course, like who cares about an 18-year-old going to a hotel? Like you got to earn your stripes. And in Paris, for the first at least like 5 years, if you're working in the hotel industry in Paris, like you're no one. You're doing all you're treated like an insect, truly. Nobody cares about you. No one cares about your growth, about your learning. They just give you the nastiest job that they don't want to do. So I remember in the first 3 months of my internship, I was literally cleaning and polishing plates and glasses. And that's all I did for the first 3 months. How great was that? Super, I learned a lot in those 3 months. Not about the hotel industry whatsoever, but more about patience, about listening to authority, about politics in the industry. Basically, the first month, I had to just keep quiet and just do the work, right? Basically, what it would be like on a day-to-day was I wake up at 6 a.m., start work at 7, go to prepare like everything that needs to be prepared for the breakfast service, and I would be polishing the glasses with hot water and vinegar like all day. Like it get to a point where my hands were like disgusting. They were so wrinkled and dry and rough because I was just with vinegar like all day with water, like scrubbing like dirty plates all day. And at one point, like in the second month of my internship, my parents, they they visited me and they came to the hotel and they wanted to like support me and everything. And there was a day that I could never forget, that they ate at the restaurant that I was serving in, and my manager, well, my assistant manager, saw that they were my parents, and he basically, towards the end of my shift, he made me stay 2 hours longer because he noticed that I left some fingerprints on the bottom of the plates, and he's like, oh, like I know your parents are waiting for you to finish your shift, but you didn't do a good job, and you need to like basically repolish all the plates. And guys, like this was not, it's more than just scrub, scrub, scrub. It was like I had around 300 plates to repolish. It's like, how ridiculous is this? Nobody even, no client like looks at the plate and be like, oh my God, the back of the plate, there's a fingerprint. No one looks at that. But that's how ridiculous it is. And I tell you, my assistant manager had something against me. I don't know what it was, but he really hated me. It was like to the point where every time I talk to him, he doesn't even look at me in the eyes. There was so much disrespect and detachment and just disinterest in me as a human being. Like he really didn't care about my existence. And I think he on purposely made me work overtime for like 2.5 hours that day when he knew that my parents were waiting for me outside of the hotel for me to finish work. And so after those hours of polishing, I went out, saw my parents, and my parents were like, why are you so late? And I'm like, well, my assistant manager kept me up the whole time to stay because I needed to polish everything. And my dad, working in the hotel industry, having this experience, he's like, Celine, they can't do that. In France, there's a law that you are not allowed to keep interns past their shift. Like it's illegal if you even make an intern work 5 minutes longer past their supposed to be time that they're done. And he told me, like, Celine, they're abusing you and you need to go to HR to complain. So I went the next day, I went to HR and I told them what happened. And a few days later, the manager came back from her holiday and she was not happy. What happened afterwards was a shitstorm because for the next 2-3 months, she made my life a living hell. Because essentially what happened was she thought I went behind her back and I complained about her and the assistant manager while she was on holiday. And she's like, Celine, don't go behind my back and complain to the HR. You should just wait for me to come back from the holiday and explain to me like what's up, you know? And basically within those next 2 months, I was never able to be in front of clients, to serve clients. I had to be in the back doing really the heavy work. So it would be me being an 18-year-old weighing only 50 kg. I had to carry these big bowls, this like champagne bowl. I don't know if you guys have seen in the buffet, they have these big bowls that are this big and you would fit like 5 champagne bottles inside and everything would be filled in ice. That stuff weighs probably more than 40-50 kg, like around my weight. I had to carry that with the strength of my little tiny back up the stairs every day for 3 months. And then there were like a million other things that I had to do from 7 a.m. up until 3 p.m. every single day. And I didn't even have a single break. I only had lunch. So you can imagine it was very laborious and tough for me. And because of this whole experience, just like the toxic environment of my colleagues and all the physical pressure that I went through, I really was in, the start of my darkest time of my life. I gained 8 kilos in 6 months. I really didn't look like myself. I completely lost my self-confidence. And I was not happy. I was really not happy. I was not in my essence. And after those 6 months, I was just so glad I was done with everything. But I came out of it really strong. Like, I hate to say it, but actually, I'm really grateful for that experience because the shit I took from all the people around me to like just bite my tongue and not fight back, not talk back, not be a little spoiled little brat and just did the work taught me a lot about what is a bad management like and how I could be in the future if I were to start my business or become a manager, like who I would not be. Because that type of toxic environment, nobody would be motivated to work. So I think coming out of that experience, I really just grew a thicker skin and I just learned how to not be a shit boss. So that was my experience that really shaped my character when I was 18 years old. Now, moving on to the next really difficult part of my life. Right after my internship, my parents had a divorce and it was super sudden. One day, my dad just texted my mom and said he didn't love her anymore and he met another woman. And at that time, I was still in Paris. I was just about to finish my internship. But when my mom told me and she called me, she was crying. And I was so devastated because I couldn't do anything to be there for her. I couldn't support her. I couldn't be there to like hug her. I was all the way in Paris and she was in Shanghai in China. So it was really heartbreaking, this whole experience. And for some time, I didn't talk to my dad for some time because I was very close with my mom. And I think normally like kids that have divorced parents tend to pick sides. And it wasn't my decision, but kind of my parents manipulated me back and forth, like who was the bad person, who was the good person in the marriage. And it was super unhealthy. And it got to a point where as they were going through the divorce, they started to have really bad financial struggles. My dad, right before the divorce, suffered his third heart attack. He's been a guy who was never very health conscious and he smoked since he was 14 years old. He's always been drinking and he has a super stressful job working 12, 14 hours a day in the hotel industry. So when I was 20 years old, my parents were getting a divorce. My dad was going through heavy health issues and we were broke. I didn't know what to do. One day when I was just in class, my dad called me and he told me, Celine, starting next month, you're gonna have to figure out how to pay for your rent and your school fees because I can't help you anymore. I've used up all my savings and now I lost my job after having these 3 heart attacks. No job wants me and you have to be on your own to find a solution because I can no longer financially provide for you. So that's the start of my entrepreneur journey. I was never so independent and solution oriented. I was really like living the life of Zach and Cody. I was living in a golden cage up until this point. I grew up half of my life in 5-star hotels. And after hearing this news, I didn't know what to do. But instead of blaming my dad and my mom, I just I cried like for one day. But then after that, I started finding solutions. So I remember in the first week when school started again, during weekends when everyone was partying and just having fun, I was job hunting. Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday, I was jumping from different restaurants all over Lausanne and asking for a part-time job as a waitress. So I ended up during my university, during that time, for those remaining 3 years, I ended up taking 3 jobs. I was a part-time waitress. I was a marketing assistant for my university, managing their social media. And I illegally took on a full-time job as well as a social media manager for a tech company who I did my second internship with. And the reason why I say illegal was because technically I could not take all those jobs at the same time. Because if you get paid a full-time salary, you have to do that 100%. But since it was a social media job, I could just work more and no one could really tell. Like I didn't have to clock in. Everything was remote at that time. So I was basically doing 2, 3 jobs at the same time. And I was hustling. Like this financial struggle of my parents separating and me completely having no one to fall back on and be supported by shaped who I am today. From that moment on, everything I saw how can I make money? I always thought about solutions. I was never someone that was like, oh, if something bad happens to me, I'm just gonna blame people. Never. From this difficult experience, I really learned to just completely rely on myself. I knew that at the end of the day, no one can save me. I could either go down a negative spiral and, I don't know, escape with drugs, or I don't know, find a sugar daddy, or I don't know, whatever anyone could resort to. You could either go down a negative spiral, or you could accept your reality and you just look for solutions. And that's what I did. So during university, at one point, I was not even sure if I would even graduate and pass because I took on so much. For those 3 years, I was doing 3 jobs at the same time. I wanted so bad to graduate with my friends that I was like, there's no way, Celine, there's no way you're gonna fail your exams. You have to do well in school. Somehow, I ended up graduating with my classmates. Everything worked out. And I think my time in university helped a lot as well, because I was fortunately not always alone by myself. Within these 3 years, I was in a 3-year relationship with my ex-boyfriend, Cedric. And some of you might know him. He is quite known on TikTok for making desserts as a chef. And the reason why I'm pausing and I'm giving this like face reaction is because if you know a TikTok chef who makes desserts and his name is Cedric, I think you know exactly who I'm talking about. That was my ex-boyfriend. We met in university. We were studying in the same university, and I dated my best friend. So we were best friends for like a year or something like that, and we ended up catching feelings, and we ended up being in a relationship for 3 years. And this relationship was the most healthy, supportive, loving relationship I could ever ask for, especially during this time when I was going through all this chaos with my family and living in survival mode. It was such a burden taken off my shoulders, having Cedric kind of be there for me and support me. We were living together, and yeah, there were just moments when I fall sick, he would always take care of me, and we would like support each other constantly. So it was a really great relationship, and I think there's no point to really go deep into it, but yeah, it ended after I graduated, and we just split ways in the most respectful, gentle, most understanding way possible at the end of our 3-year relationship. I had to move back to Shanghai to spend some time with my mom after COVID. I haven't seen her for 3 years, and Cedric wanted to stay in Switzerland, so we mutually agreed to break up. And then after that, we just never got back together. It was initially going to be a break, but then we ended up just breaking up. And then I've been single ever since. And then my time in Shanghai, which was just 1 year before I started my business, and how everything has changed. When I graduated, I had no clue what I wanted to do. No clue. I remember my classmates were all telling me like they got jobs at like McKinsey, like all the best corporate companies you can think of. And at that time I was thinking I was a failure, because I just was looking through LinkedIn and I was thinking there is nothing I'm interested in. Like maybe I want to be an investment analyst back then, because like I was into stocks, and I just couldn't find anything that I was interested in. So I decided to take a gap year and go back to Shanghai for 1 year, be with my mom, because at that time she was by herself after the divorce, and be there with her, support her, give her emotional support. And then in the meantime, I would be studying the CFA, which is a type of certification in the finance industry. It's basically equivalent to a finance master's. And I wanted, like, my goal was essentially to get the certification and basically apply to be an investment analyst at JP Morgan. So I was really into, during my university, I got into stocks. I started buying my first stock when COVID happened in March 2020. There was a huge stock market crash. And I remember for the longest time, like since I was 16, I was always fascinated by businesses and why certain companies grow and some companies go down. I had a really inspiring finance teacher in university that inspired me to start learning how to invest in the stock market. So one day, like 2-3 days after the huge stock market crash in March 2020, I decided to just give it a try. I had no idea how to start, what to do, but I just called up my bank one day with UBS and I was like, I want to buy stocks. How do I start? Do I need to open an account? And I was really fortunate to have someone who was really nice and basically walked me through every step. I created an account with a Swiss bank and I bought my first stocks 1 week later. And I basically am self-taught up until then, like for that year during COVID, I was investing in tech stocks, I was investing in vaccines, I was investing basically, I just used my common sense and I was like, hey, what is likely gonna do well during this economy? And like I was thinking to myself the first time when I bought my stocks, I was like, COVID is not gonna last forever. I see all these companies crashing like 50%, like hotel companies, like Marriott was at 150 a share, they went down to like $70. And I'm like, if I just put my savings, a bit of my savings in this company, and maybe 2 years' time, the stock would go back to its original price because the company would recover, I would double my money. And it required literally like no time from my part. I didn't have to work hours to double my money. I literally just needed like to dump my money in this company that's gonna recover in a matter of time. And my money's just gonna grow. I love that idea. So I started being super passionate and started buying so many stocks in the first year of COVID. And I got to a point where I was just sharing my journey with everyone on Instagram and everything. And eventually people started coming up to me, my classmates, and asked me, Celine, I want to learn how to invest. Like, you are doing super well. Can you teach me how? And that was the start of how I became an investment coach. So it started when I was literally 20 years old, March 2020. I think I started coaching like 3 months later. And I remember in the very beginning when someone came up to me and they were like, Celine, I'm happy to pay you for your time, for you to teach me investing. The first thing that came to my mind was, am I even qualified to be teaching someone investing? Like, who am I to be charging even like $30 an hour to teach someone how to invest? Like, I'm not an investment analyst. I've only been investing for like 3 months, but still, people saw my value and they were offering to pay. And I remember at that time, like I called up my mom and I was like, Mom, how much should I charge an hour for this guy? Like, there's this guy that wants me to teach him how to invest. It's one of my classmates. And without hesitation, she was like, charge him $60 an hour. And I was like, 60? Do you think he's actually gonna say yes? And she's like, well, you're teaching him how to make money. And also you're saving him a lot of time because he could do this by himself, just like you, and lose a lot of money and time along the way. But you're saving him all this time and money from making all these mistakes. So $60 an hour is like, it's cheap. So I took my mom's advice and then I told him like, hey, it's 60. And he's like, cool, when should we get started? And I was like, that was the first time I was like, whoa. And so that was kind of like my side hustle for some time. Also during university, I was also coaching people how to invest, and I was making like an extra $500, $1,000 a month coaching people how to invest. And it kind of just sticked around up until I graduated. I was thinking like, this has always been working out. Like, what if I pursue down this path? And I would have never guessed, guys, I would have never guessed 20-year-old Celine would look at me now, doing this for a living, being able to now travel the world, being location free, financially free, and doing what I love, speaking my truth, talking to you guys, inspiring you guys every single day to learn how to invest, to make passive income. I really can't believe I did it. And I really want to like go really deep into this next part about like my journey of this whole coaching journey, how I started my business, because there was so much personal development, so much growth, so much healing through this next 2 years of starting my business, because I had so many limiting beliefs. I didn't believe that I could take this business to the next level. So for a whole year, since I started coaching in university up until like I was in Shanghai, I was charging per hour. And I got to a point where I was charging $100 an hour, which is amazing. It's really good. But I was still making like maybe maximum on like good months, I would be making $2,000 a month, which is great. You know, it's great. It's like great side hustle. I was doing what I loved. I was my own boss and everything, but it was extremely exhausting because every month, the next month, I had to constantly work and chase after new clients. And I felt still like a slave because I constantly never stopped working. After coaching clients, I had to create content on Instagram to like get new clients. And it was just this cycle that would repeat. And one day I decided to write on my journal. I had a journal at that time. I decided to write. I started to manifest for the first time of my life. I don't know why. I just started journaling and I wrote down in my manifestation, by the end of 2022, so my real journey started in 2022, I said, by the end of 2022, I'm going to make $4,000 a month with my business, and I will be in a state where money comes to me effortlessly, and I will be doing what I love, and I will be financially free, and I will be completely focusing on my business and doing this full time rather than doing a 9 to 5. Because back then, at this time, right when 2022 started, I was going through a huge dilemma, like an identity crisis. Because on one side, I grew up with the whole belief that that success was working in a successful company. That's what I knew was success, because that's how I was raised up by my dad. My dad was always like, you got to work for the best company in the world. And you got to climb your way to the top. Like there was never this thing like coaching online, making money online, teaching investment. Like he if he knew this now, he would never even believe. Like back then when he heard about this, he didn't believe that I was actually making money with this. So I was on two crossroads between doing what I always thought was going to be success, or listening to my gut feeling of just doing what feels right. And I tell you guys, like, this was the make or break it of who I became today. This sudden questioning of my beliefs, my programming of what I thought was success, like literally everything that has been taught to me, that was the first time I challenged my core beliefs. And something really deep in my heart, in my soul, told me, Celine, you need to wait. Don't make a rash decision and just apply for a job and go back to Switzerland. Like something told me to stay in Shanghai with my mom, and I knew that in the next coming months I would get an answer, because I was like not sure. I was at this point in my life that I was really not sure if I should go back to my 9 to 5 job or if I should start this online business and take it seriously as a full-time job. And something deep in my soul told me to wait for an answer, a sign from the universe, or I don't know what. What I ended up doing was I journaled everything that I was thinking about. I wrote it down on a piece of paper, and I was like, if continuing to coaching is really the right fit for me, universe, please give me a sign. And back then I already was like really into angel numbers and stuff like that. Like I started a little bit of I was really into like astrology and everything. And at that time when I wrote that down to ask for a sign, I saw like my phone literally like flashed. There was a notification. And I saw the time was 17:17. And back then I was like, I wonder if there's a meaning behind that. Like I always like to attach meanings to everything. So I went on Google, I searched like the meaning of what is 17:17 because it was 5:17 p.m. And I checked and I saw that the one typically represents you are most successful and happy in your life when you're doing something, when you're leading, when you're doing something, like when you are taking charge of your life and you're not following someone else's path, like when you are creating. And then the 7 represented you are in your essence when you are passing down wisdom to other people. And I thought to myself, oh my God, this is such a weird coincidence. Like me now doing my own thing, being my own boss, and also like coaching people how to invest was actually the exact sign I needed from the universe that maybe I should just keep doing this and see where this takes me. Because at that time, everything flowed, everything felt supernatural. Like when I'm teaching and coaching people and like creating content and inspiring people and speaking my truth, like that was when I was really in my essence. I felt super empowered and happy doing what I loved. So that was the moment when I really decided to listen to my intuition. And I also wrote down in my journal that I wanted to attract new people in my life that had the knowledge and wisdom to guide me to my higher purpose. I didn't know what my purpose was at that time. It maybe had to do something with like speaking to people and everything and like passing down knowledge, but I didn't know what was my purpose. But 1 week later, I basically met this guy on Instagram, and he was this like retired investment banker who is now like a TikTok trading coach. And this guy, the 60-year-old guy, reached out to me on Instagram, and he's like, hey, like I'm a trading coach and I love your content, and I was just wondering if I could book a strategy call with you and see how you coach, because I want to target a younger audience and I want to see like what is your teaching style and everything. So I was like, okay, cool. I got on a call with him. We ended up having a 4-hour call, and it ended up being him giving me life wisdom and basically giving me all the answers I needed to make the final decision to completely pursue this business full time. Because it was so difficult at that point in my life to know what type of advice I should be taking. Should I be taking advice from like bankers, people that have been working a 9-to-5 job, or should I be taking advice from like entrepreneurs? And the thing you guys need to know is that people can be really successful, but just because they're successful doesn't mean that their advice applies to you, because they only know a certain reality of their life. So, and everyone has different intentions, even if it could be not, it doesn't always have to be bad intentions, but people always will say things that work for them. And so in my case, whenever I would talk to people working a 9-to-5 job, they would tell me, oh, Celine, like this is super risky to do this like online business. You need to just work a couple years, earn your stripes in an investment bank, and then maybe you could do that in the future. And when I talk to entrepreneurs, they're like, oh, like quit the rat race, pursue an online business. So I didn't know what to do. But this guy, Ollie, he had 20 years experience working in an investment bank. And then after that, he quit his job, and then he ended up being a trading coach for the next 20 years. And I asked for his advice. And the advice he gave me literally changed my whole perspective. And that triggered my entrepreneur journey. When we were talking about how much I charged an hour, which was like $100 an hour at that time, he told me, Celine, you are underselling yourself. I know a girl who is like 26 years old, and she knows half as much as you do about investments. And she's making $200,000 a month doing what you're doing online. And I was like, what? How is that possible? And he's like, Celine, like I'm telling you, you need to like, you already have your foot in the door in this. you need to do this, you need to go all in. You can't just have half foot in, half foot out. And he basically told me, like, you don't need to work a few years in a bank. They're not going to teach you shit. If you want to pursue an entrepreneur path, you just need to get in the game and just learn while doing. And so what he advised me to do was basically just completely scratch my 9 to 5 plan. And he's like, what's the worst thing that can happen, Celine? What if your business doesn't work out? Then in 2 years' time, just apply again to a job, because people will always be needing like employees. Whereas with your entrepreneur journey, like, you're so young, and this is the time when you should be taking risks. So that's what I did. And after that, I went all in on my business. And 1 month later, I met my best friend on Instagram, who was actually, in the beginning, she was my mentor who scaled up my business. So that was another very special, one of the most special people in my life. Her name is Mary Bell. Maybe for those of you who follow me, you guys know what she looks like. She's a very beautiful black girl with afro hair. Before we were best friends, she was my mentor, and she was running a online business at that time. And we met on Instagram, and one day she followed me, and I was like, who's this cool girl? And we started like sliding into each other's DMs, like engaging with each other. And one day she's like, oh, what do you do? And I told her I was an investment coach and my struggles. Like, I wanted to like find ways to make more money, because she was also doing an online business. And she's like, Celine, I think we should hop on a call, because I am a business consultant and this is literally what I do. Like, I help girls like you grow your business. And so we hopped on a call, and she basically sold me her mentorship program, which I did not hesitate for a single second, and paid her a couple $1,000s. And in the beginning of the call, like, she was telling me, she was so confident. She's like, Celine, if you follow our strategies, you're gonna make your first $10,000 in 2 months. And I was just like, what the fuck are you saying? I'm making like $1,000 a month right now, and you're telling me in 2 months I'm gonna make $10,000 a month? Like, you are bullshitting me. And she's like, Celine, I've done this. Like, I did this. Like, I know you can. Like, you're literally, you just need to set up the right strategies, and you're gonna completely, like, you're gonna realize the whole world is gonna change. And one thing about me is, like, I really know how to trust people, and I just always execute whenever I'm given advice. So I basically, for the next month, just did everything she said. I think I'm not gonna go so much into detail as to what strategies I did, because I think this is for another video. But basically, in the first month of her coaching, I made my first $20,000. And I remember, like, the first time I closed a sale, like the first time I got a new client who paid me $3,000, I made a video. I made a little like documentary, like little 5-minute video of me talking about it, which I would love to watch again, like 5 years down the road. But that was the first time I was like, my whole world, my whole belief system, like, broke down. Because my whole life I was thinking, like, first of all, I can only be successful working for a 9 to 5 job. And if I did do a business, it would take like 5-10 years to be successful. And I'd be lucky if I would make 10,000 a month in like by 5 years time. But then I suddenly made it at, I would just turn 23 at that time. I made my first $20,000. And poof, may I tell you guys, the level of confidence I got after the first time I closed at $3,000, like, my whole identity changed. And I really want to like anchor this down. I think like money really does change you. I think, at least in the beginning, it gives you unshakable confidence, especially if you're starting to be an entrepreneur and you're starting your own thing. And when you work so hard, and then you see results coming in, and you start seeing like customers see value in what you're doing, and people are paying such prices to you, you have so much inner power in you, because you start realizing, like, damn, it worked. Like, all the hard work, all the things I put in for the last years came to this point. And after that, like, my whole life changed. My physical appearance changed, because I think, like, I also just naturally, like, I just became so confident in myself. Like just this, I felt so self-secure that like me speaking to different clients, like doing sales, like being in front of the camera all the time, like it's been like years of progress. Like this didn't happen overnight. How I am the way I am and the way I talk now, it's like so effortless. It was really like years and years in the making. Up and even back until I would say when I was 6 years old, I was prepping till today. Like I've always been on stage, I've always been talking in front of the camera. So it's really been a long work in progress. So I didn't have an overnight success. This was really just years of challenging my limiting beliefs, breaking them, and just also listening to my inner voice and being somehow connected to some higher force. I'm not religious. I don't believe in God, but I do believe in some higher force. I believe in the universe. And I guess my philosophy in life is I think the more you connect with yourself, you are able to channel some very strong power that is connected to the universe. And the moment you can connect to yourself on such a deep level, you're able to even be the creator of your reality. And when you are the creator of your reality, you get to a point where you will be heavily rewarded by the universe only when you are brave enough to be completely authentically yourself. And that journey it's a healing journey. It's a journey of healing. It's a journey of like spiritually being connected to something deeper in yourself. This journey takes a lot of courage. It takes courage for you to look deep into yourself and face your real self. Because I think a lot of people are afraid to be themselves. We have been our whole lives conditioned and programmed to behave and be a certain type of person in society. Like back then when I was a kid, I was hyperactive as fuck. I was to a point where I was so hyper, I didn't know how to channel my energy. And up until my preteens, I was still this super hyper kid. Like I get to a point where I would just be hugging every single person in the room when I'm happy. Like I was sick. I was severely bullied when I was 12 to 13 years old. Like I had a period of my life where I was super bullied by the kids in my school because I was so different. But and I suppressed that energy. I suppressed my natural essence of who I was as a person. Like the natural essence of Celine, like my inner child, was this performer, this like super energetic girl. And I really like calmed down. And and for like the next 5 years, from like 15 to like 22, I was not myself. I was not completely myself. I was not like embracing every aspect of myself that I think now I'm really reaching a point where I could really be unapologetically myself and not give a shit about what people think about me. But for the longest time, I did. And when you try to be someone you're not, you are pushing away abundance of what the universe wants to give you. My philosophy in life is that the universe will always be giving you abundance. Like life is all about abundance, but you're just pushing it away. And it's not inherently your fault. You're just conditioned by society to just limit yourself in so many different ways. For example, you might be really good at art and you're just incredibly talented with drawing and painting. But somehow down the road, just like me, when I was in my singing career, people around you basically wanted to create and shift you into a mold of what you should be. And so you start neglecting that natural talent of yours. And you start limiting yourself and you don't believe in yourself. And then you start believing like, oh, you know what? I'm just going to be successful if I work for this job. And then for the next 10 years of my life, I'm just going to work my ass off in a accounting firm or a tech firm because society like thinks this is successful, and you just live your life as a lie. You're not authentically yourself. And so by not being authentically yourself, you restrict yourself from all the abundance that the universe wants to give you, because the universe wants you to be yourself. That's it. And once you can one day like have the courage to do that, that's when everything just starts working out. Everything flows, everything will come at the right time, at the right place. You will start getting like incredible opportunities. You'll start meeting incredible people, because let me tell you something. If I didn't start really becoming myself on and I wasn't showing that on social media, I wouldn't have attracted Maribel, who is now my best friend, who became my mentor, who saw my potential and then coached me to really scale up my business. Because before I met her, I was having a mask in front of me. And I was, putting up a persona, and that wasn't me anymore. And I basically had an ego death where I just killed the old version of me. And I think right before that period of my life, this was my spiritual journey at that time, where I completely questioned everything about myself. I questioned my belief system. I questioned everything like that. Oh, my mom is here. So I'm going to show you my mom. Mom, come here. So this is my mom, and this is my cat, Cha-Ching. I guess we'll take a little break here. I guess you guys can hear when I'm holding him. Beep, beep. Can you hear him purring? This is my cat, Cha-Ching, and I named him after money because I thought it was quite a catchy name. And he's been like the biggest angel, as you can, okay, he's gonna go. But yes, to continue my story, the moment I really started embracing and being authentically myself, that was when everything worked out for me. I attracted the right people. I completely also at the same time lost like almost all my friends, because I realized they were no longer aligning with the new version of me that I wanted to become. So all the friends that I used to party with, who I would drink with, and like the girls that, spend their weekends watching Netflix and gossiping, like somehow the universe just said like, Celine, this is your time to level up and embrace the new version of you. Like I just lost all my friends. We just stopped hanging out. Like they kind of went behind my back, but it was all for the better. And I think a lot of the girls right now, if any of the girls are currently going through this phase where you're losing friends and you feel like nothing's working out for you, this is just the universe giving you a sign to channel and step into the new version of you. The universe will always know in the right time when to take people away from your life and when new people are going to come into your life. And this whole process is to just trust yourself and trust the universe that the good will come. Whatever challenges are going to come your way, like for me, when I had my financial difficulties, my parents separating, all of this was all setting me up for this moment in my life. And I guess yes, overall my philosophy in life is very spiritual, but I also think it's very practical, because on one side I believe that you should just completely listen to your intuition, trust yourself, because your soul really knows what you want in this life. But on the other side, I think you also have to play the game of what life is. Life is a game, and you could be the most spiritual person and say money doesn't matter, career, like none of this matters. Why can't we just live in the present, just not abide to society, and just not work hard to be somehow financially successful? Well, life is going to bite you in the ass, and you have to learn the rules of the game and somehow connect these two forces in life, which is you have to play the rules of the game, which is this is how society is going to reward you if you learn certain skills in life of what's going to pay well. And in my case, I'm like, business is going to pay well. Even though I might be, I love to sing, I love to dance, but at the end of the day, it's not going to pay my bills. It could maybe down the road, but I also was super practical and logical in saying, hey, look, this is what society needs. This is what they're looking for. This is the market demand, and this is how I'm going to help people in this way. And I was heavily rewarded by it. But then I think also money only gets you so far. Money and success is going to reach a point where if you're no longer connected to yourself, if you're no longer aligned with yourself, and you're doing something that is not giving you that real joy and passion, then it's going to be counterproductive. But in the process of chasing success and money, it gets to a point where it can be very dangerous if you start losing yourself and you're no longer aligned with your true passion and who you are as a person. And I was at this stage where I was only chasing money and success. And it got to the point where I was extremely burnt out. And actually, funny enough, business ended up not working out. And at one point, I reached my glass ceiling with business. I suddenly couldn't attract any more clients in my business. I wasn't getting the results I wanted when I was creating content. Like everything was going against me because I was so focused on just money and success. And I basically re entered a second cycle of my spiritual journey, because my first cycle, my first spiritual journey was, okay, how do I channel my entrepreneur side and start a business? But then once I started my business and I was making really good money for maybe like the first 6 months, I was making every month like 15, 20,000 a month. At one point, I stagnated and I reached a plateau. And for the longest time, I was like, I'm just not working hard enough. I don't know why I'm not doing better. And every time, and now I'm really getting to a point where I've had so many spiritual awakenings that I realize that every single time something doesn't work out, it's because I have to stop and realize that I'm not being my true self again. Because at that time when I had a few months where I wasn't doing well in my business again, I was trying to be, again, some type of persona on social media as this investment coach, and I wasn't really being myself. And I realized like I wasn't so happy only talking about the stock market. And you guys can see now, like I like my personal brand on Instagram, like I'm not only talking about stocks anymore. I'm talking about everything that I believe in. I talking about spirituality, business, personal development, growth, like feminine energy, like all of this was because I stopped everything for a moment and reflected again about who am I as a person and who do I want to be on a day-to-day basis. And through this 2 months of reflecting and redefining myself again, and this was just like 6 months ago, I had a difficult conversation with myself and finally thought, you know, Celine, you're not being yourself. You're not being authentically yourself. You have to completely rebrand your Instagram. You're not just an investment coach. You are a multi-dimensional human being who loves to talk about personal development, who loves to talk about spirituality, who loves to talk about relationships, who loves to also dance a little, like when you're making videos. And the moment I was honest with myself, I started making 30,000 a month, and I reached a new milestone in my business. And yeah, throughout this whole process, I learned more and more that moments where I really could not be myself, I had to just stop and reconnect with myself. And every time I reconnected with myself and I changed these things, I attracted more abundance in my life. I created my coaching program, which is now called Luna, because of my business journey. And I wanted to redefine success. And my definition of success is you can only go so far being successful by taking the action, by doing the work, having the discipline and being smart and having all these strategies to make a lot of money. But at one point, you're going to reach a cap. And this glass ceiling is where I was at last year, because I realized that I started not being connected to myself. And this side that I think most people are neglecting is the feminine energy. And I'm really like, this is like the biggest theme of my program, is finding that balance between the yin and the yang. Everything in life is about balance. When you're taking action and when you're learning all these skills to make a lot of money, this is all masculine energy, which is great because masculine energy is what's going to create the structure for you to be successful and make a lot of money. But if you're not aligned with yourself, you're not connected to yourself, you're not really listening to your intuition to do what is really meant to be you, like you're not authentically being yourself, you're not being creative, you're not taking a moment to slow down, working fully on your masculine energy is going to backfire, especially for women, because as women, you are going to burn out and abundance is just going to stop. The universe is not going to give you abundance anymore when you are not connected to yourself. So there's this element of this yang, this feminine energy, which you also have to nurture and you have to find a balance. And this feminine energy that I'm talking about is not, oh yeah, like I'm just going to meditate and I don't know, like do girl, like I think many people have a misconception of what feminine energy is in business, but in my perception, feminine energy is everything opposite from the masculine energy. So if masculine energy is about discipline and structure and logic, feminine energy in a business is listening to your intuition rather than your mind, doing what feels good, taking moments to slow down and not just be hustling, hustling, hustling. So I created Luna as a blueprint for any woman who wants to achieve success holistically, to make a lot of money and be financially abundant, but at the same time be truly connected to herself and channel her divine femininity, where you can be effortlessly yourself, attract meaningful relationships, attract abundant opportunities in your life, and make good money for it while you're doing what you love. And so that this is really the essence and my mission of creating Luna. And I think this wraps up this whole video of my story. And I really hope that, I mean, for those of you who have watched it this far into the video, I am extremely flattered and I want to thank you for your attention and your time for watching this video. And I really hope that any of you guys who have watched this video has really taken a lot of wisdom and knowledge from it. And for those of you who are either starting your business journey or investing journey, or you're in a phase of your life where you're going through a lot of challenges, I really hope that my story has inspired you to really be brave enough to step into a new chapter of your life where you can be yourself and trust yourself that everything's gonna work out. And yeah, thank you so much. This concludes the first YouTube video I've ever made. And until next time, thank you guys for listening.